Branding is very important. Hey, folks, thanks for tuning in to the BAM podcast. And as I said, branding is very important. So that audiovisual introduction is your assurance that you're listening to a high-quality podcast right now, ladies and gentlemen.
High quality.
High quality. And
only the best.
Only the best. The fineless podcastings, seasoned and artisanally crafted here at the BAM.
Artisanally crafted.
The fineless bespoke podcastings. And usual co-host, Walt Rebelliard. How you doing, Walt?
Up.
Walt's new book is coming out next week.
Yes, that is Hunter's Moon, Book 3, The Sentinel.
And available Audible, Amazon, all of those.
Let's see if I can do the wonderful technological thing of sharing my screen. It would go right there.
Nice.
Ooh, very nice.
Yeah.
So
I am super stoked. I just got another awesome review for book 2. Somebody was very, very kind, and they were like, "This is what Star Wars should be. This is like if Darth Vader went legit." I was like, "Yes,
That's exactly what you're going for."
I was
going to say that is what you're going for. Walt, I apologize I haven't written a review yet. I am on chapter 19 of the first book.
Oh, you're about to get to the good part.
Yeah. I've been listening to it in the gym and when I drive my kid around to his various kid things. So
usually chapter 20 is when I get like a note or a phone call, and it's like, "Dude, I was listening on Audible and I almost crashed my car." I'm like,
okay.
Like good news, bad news, dude. I was laughing so hard, and geeking out. I felt like I was 12 again. I was like, well, thank you very much for your feedback. In the meantime, I'm like dancing in the back. I'm like rolling my arms. I'm like, yes, So yeah, but we're up to like 75 reviews on the first book. Which,
nice.
Hey, Sean, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Most of them 5-star. We're at like 75% 5-star, 4 and 5-star. And then I really appreciated the 2 and 3-star reviews that were very indicative of things I could have done differently.
I read
one of them
those last week.
Yeah,
Feedback
and they were very positive, but at the same time, they gave a lot of great advice. So it's just little things to tick the box as you go forward.
Well, it's good to get feedback that shows they're actually engaged and not just this guy sucks. It's
the one that kind of wounded me a little bit was I read through the first book and thoroughly enjoyed it, but as I get to book 2, it's just too much, and I think I'm gonna stop. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, bro, but
he didn't watch John Wick either. He hated.
Yeah,
John Wick.
and that's the weird thing, because if you look at the reviews and where the book is, like where the algorithm is taking the book, a lot of it is going toward colonization science fiction. And while there is while there is an element of that in the book, it's very minor. It's more like a set piece than it is like the reason for the book. This is at core hey Jason, this is at core a revenge fantasy set against a military backdrop. So like a lot of the major criticism is there's more than a lot of point of view because you're dealing with a military unit and different parts of the unit because of the size of the unit has to deal with this one character that keeps bouncing around them. So that was one thing that kind of, I could have done a little better, but it's something that we can take into account if we do more of them. And then, but the primary, these are the main characters are very, very bad people that get pulled into a revenge plot. One of my editors was even great, was like, your protagonists are terrible people, and frequently I'm rooting for them to fail. I was like, yes, that is exactly what I wanted, So, so having Amazon hit the algorithm and put me in those kind of categories is a little disconcerting, but nothing I can't turn around with, like, either resetting the blurb for the book or well-crafted back matter, anything like that. I try to point out that, like, hey, if you like things like Killjoys, Dark Matter, the Clone Wars, right? Those are kind of like the areas that will most benefit from reading something like this. So, it's just something to latch onto for the future.
Barbarella, Ice Pirates.
I wouldn't go Ice Pirates. Too far.
Not Ice Pirates.
No, too far. No space harpies.
Adventures in the Forbidden Zone.
Yeah, you might get a little bit of that in the second book.
Okay. Well, hey, I've been a bad host because we have a new co-host, and I haven't introduced him at all yet. Jay, please tell our viewers and listeners who you are, sir.
I am J.W. Kiefer. I am a paranormal urban fantasy writer currently. Praise and worship
Finally!
leader, father of two.
We finally have another one. It's all science fiction around here.
I know. Not military sci-fi.
I like
Hey,
it, but I do a lot of the urban fantasy too, so cool.
Okay. Awesome.
Jay,
We're
do you
definitely going to be friends.
have your Amazon link handy? I can throw it up there.
I do not, but I can get it. But you can, if you go to jwkiefer.com, I have everything linked through there.
Okay. And how do I spell Kiefer?
Kiefer.
Okay, that was my mistake.
Yes.
You went EI,
German.
didn't you?
It's German.
Everybody
Everybody spells it EI.
Never stay in.
Which is kind of funny. We did what was it? Where you check your blood and look at your heritage, and we're actually very little German. It's mostly Irish and English and French. It's crazy.
I'm kind of afraid to touch one of those tests because my family's from the Mediterranean, so I'm afraid I might break it.
Hey, I heard a story about a guy upstate New York who was deep into going to the residence on weekends, doing all the powwows, and one of his kids got him a 23andMe test for Christmas.
Yeah.
Not a drop of native blood.
Isn't that crazy?
Just all Scotch and Irish. And the guy's in his 50s. His identity is pretty set. And he's like, God damn, why don't you guys give me a shamrock tattoo? What the fuck am I supposed to do with this? It's a big load to drop on somebody. So it's I keep thinking about doing it. And my wife's like, you don't resemble your father too much. I'm like, what do you mean by that? Just wait a few years.
I'm the mailman's kid.
That's what she's implying.
I had it done about 6 months ago, and it said exactly what I thought it would.
Yeah.
It was actually kind of cool because my grandmother was Eastern European and everyone else was Western, and she died a couple of years ago, and we were able to see like 75% of me comes from here, and then there's grandma. Right. And it was kind of cool to see.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Hey,
Jason Sunday is coming. I'm almost through the first book. It's a bit like Star Wars if it was written by an actual veteran and isn't held back by the need to include kids.
Although
there's going to be a Christmas special, Hunter's Moon Christmas special.
There is now.
I would watch it.
There is now.
I'll act in it too if you want.
That's fantastic. We actually are doing a series of a couple of short, kind of like almost Kindlevella-esque things through Mike Lafferty and.
We are so close to launching Blaster Bolt 12. I'm just finishing up the last adventure this week. We'll get it to layout, and then we'll launch the first 4 issues on Kickstarter or some other crowdfunding platform. So
right on.
This close. Need to do it once. I should do it when your book's coming out, right? Try to write those details.
That's all good.
Jay, can you send me a link with your send me your link because I'm having trouble finding jwkiefer.com because I'm probably just fat fingering something. But
oh yeah, no problem.
That's what happens when you're doing Krav Maga with your kid.
I'm trying to get into it, man. It's a real different vibe there. I'm used to going to a gym where I'm like the one dude in a fitness class with 27, soccer moms, and Krav Maga is a little different.
I got to tell you, yes,
Yeah.
I got to tell you, one of my favorite things lately is to go to like these newly reopening jiu-jitsu gyms, and I'll wear my I have like a brand new judogi that I'll put on, and then I'll tie the belt wrong, and like with a white belt, and I'll just stand there kind of like frumpy looking, and it's funny the amazing amount of like soccer moms who drop their kids off at soccer and come do this for an hour, and I'm like, huh, yeah, that's cool.
It's definitely a thing. We get a lot of that. The guy who runs my joint he's like that high school football coach who likes to yell a lot, and he's doing it in a funny way most of the time. But at the same time, it's definitely a tone. Like, you can't enter his dojo until it's 5 minutes before your class, and if you do, he makes a big deal and throws some things and yells at you, and it's funny, but it's also loud.
Is he like Master Ken?
Not dissimilar to Master Ken.
I love Master Ken.
So it's,
but there's no style on earth that's the equal of Meridote. So
just re-stomp the groin.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, Krav Maga can't touch it.
Nope.
I was Muay Thai.
Speaking of Krav Maga, there is my son. So I need to do a parenting thing real fast. Jay, could you just give a brief introduction who you are to our viewers, and I will be right back.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
My name is J.W. Kiefer. I am, like I said, a paranormal urban fantasy writer currently. My first novel just dropped. I'm working on a series called The Justice Cycle?
Congratulations on the drop.
Thank you. Book 1 is called Death. Book 2 is already in the works. That'll be called Famine. Sorry, it took me a minute. Famine, which I'm working on.
Is the series going to cover like the Four Horsemen kind of thing?
Yes, I'm glad you caught that, because most people don't, because they're like, why'd you name it Death? I'm like, just wait till the next couple books.
Oh,
yeah, you'll get it.
Apocalypse, X-Men.
It's sort of. It's
Not
Famine, Wrath. I think the books will be Death, Famine, Wrath, Plague, War.
Sweet.
You should totally throw a red herring at the end. You know, Death, Plague, Famine, Tickle Fight.
That would be great. I should do like a separate
compassion.
Yeah, compassion.
So it's been a lot of fun. My story centers around upstate New York, which is where I'm from, with Western New York and the Southern Tier, and New York City. Takes place primarily in those two locations. We'll branch out more into the world as we go, but for right now, I'm kind of staying in my area, which for me is kind of fun to write about where I grew up, my hometown. A lot of people in my area that have read the book, or they're like, we love that you're kind of showcasing our area. It's kind of forgotten up here in Binghamton area. So, and they just love that, how it's kind of showing people a little bit more about that New York isn't just New York City. So it's a lot of fun. I'm loath.
Is it like vampires and witches and stuff, or?
Okay. So, The Justice, I'm low. I don't know how much I want to give away because of the book, but the Justice Cycle,
high concept genre kind of stuff.
Oh no! Well, although Gordon Ramsay of Krav Maga, sold at the Four Horsemen. Thank you. It's yes, this book involves vampires. The second book. The first book is more of an introduction to the world, introduction to the characters. It's an origin story. It was originally a comic book series that I was working on when I was younger, that I decided to turn into a novel series, considering I'm not an author. Wanted to turn it to an anime, but again, not an artist. It was harder for me to find people to do that. Still, what I would like to do at some point is turn it into an anime. But as I started writing the first novel, the world began to open up so much more. And so it took a whole different turn than what it was originally as a comic book. Of course, when you're writing a comic book, it's populated with all sorts of other characters. But and because it's a broad world of other characters, and they will be introduced. So some of these characters will come in, but the whole world has changed. And what I found fascinating as I began to write, and since we've been talking about the writing process, how much so things begin to just open up, and what you thought, like as a pantser in particular, when you have a base idea, how much broadly it begins to open up and become something far more than what you ever imagined it could. Like you have a basic idea, basic story. I want to do this. At its heart, the first book is a relationship between two brothers, and in a way, if you would want to get into like an Anakin and Obi-Wan kind of idea in some way, not quite that, but in a way very much like that. I was very influenced by Ari Salvatore. I don't know if anybody's ever read Ari Salvatore and his Dritz character and his relationship with Arden Contrary.
We're all RPG publishers. I'm pretty sure we've all read it.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I used to play D&D quite a bit when I was younger. I haven't in a while. But so the world begins to broadly open up. So at its heart, there's two sentient swords, or we'll go with the one sentient sword. It's the spirit of justice. And so at the beginning of mankind, really pretty much at the fall, God created this weapon, the sentient sword, who would then take a bear, and that bear would become the living embodiment of justice. And so there's the cycle, the justice cycle, where the bearer starts out, then they become the living embodiment, and then their soul begins to degrade to become, to do what justice needs to do. A human soul cannot handle that forever. So depending on each person, the cycle is quicker or longer. And then when it begins to degrade, they are killed, and then the cycle begins anew when the sword chooses a new bearer. So that's kind of the basic principle of it.
That is cool. That has like all the best part of Darkness and Witchblade,
Yes.
but before they got weird.
Yes.
Oh, it
really
got
cool.
weird.
I agree. Before it got weird. Yes.
Yeah,
No, I
that's
agree.
really cool. I'm into
So
it.
it's kind of a cool idea. There's two of them. One is injustice. One is justice. I don't want to give up too much of the plot, but they're archetypal, and these characters become archetypal characters. Matter of fact, they lose their names. So the main characters when you start the book are the Shogun and the Musketeer. And so, you're like, okay, well, what are their names? But they've lost their names because they aren't those people anymore. They've become the archetypes of justice and injustice. So they're the Musketeer and the Shogun. So you see this kind of as these characters grow. So on top of this, the cycle, which is mainly the first book, is a lot about the one character, the end of one cycle, the beginning of another. So you're being introduced to the new character, Jared Cadret, who is a police detective, and how he becomes the spirit of justice, and this cycle begins for him. And it's pretty interesting. And then, of course, there's, you begin to be introduced to this broader world, supernatural world that exists in the shadows that the normal human person may come into contact with, but doesn't really understand. And this war that's been going on for millennia. And then as the stories progress, the war becomes more prevalent. You know what I'm saying? And that's where the Four Horsemen come in. I don't want to talk too much about it. As a writer, I'll tell you everything, but I want people to read it.
No, of course.
kind of-
And we don't
kind of,
normally
you know,
give
get
away
it, but-
everything anyway.
So it's hard to, I get into the Nephilim. I get into the idea that at the beginning of mankind, if you study the Judeo version of creation, when God created mankind, they fell, but then between Noah's Ark and the fall, the Grigori or the Watchers came into being. They mated with human beings, created the Nephilim. Then they caused humanity to fall even farther into sin, and then God wiped everything out with a flood, cursed the Watchers, cursed the Grigori. So I kind of use a lot of that mythology and adding it into explaining supernatural beings like vampires, werewolves. So I have my own little view of how that's going to play out. I don't want to get too much into it, but it's pretty cool how I like it. I think it's pretty interesting. So it's not a normal like, oh, they're just a vampire, or they're just a werewolf, or they're just a fairy, or whatever. There's a whole reason behind these races, where they come from, how they're created, which is pretty cool, and this war between humanity and these supernatural beings, and how they're both in a way kind of vying for control of creation, if you would. So it's kind of
Very
interesting.
cool.
Yeah. While this justice cycle is also going on, and you're dealing with Jared becoming justice and wrestling with what it means to be a justice, and how he's, it's a sentient sword that he's got to deal with. So,
Nice.
so
Cool. And the Amazon link is shared right there.
Thank
So before the show, we were talking about problems with writing novels. And
Yes.
I do short stories, so it's kind of out of my ballpark. But you guys are all working on novels right now, or Walt, as we pointed out top of the show, is already published number 3. Now, Jay, you and Walt are both pantsers.
yes, we are.
But you were trying to become an outliner. That wasn't working out for you?
Well, no, because I found that I hated writing. So you're trying to. Honestly, I probably should be farther along in book 2, but I tried to plot. I even download Plotter and the
Oh, yeah.
and I'm working on it. And I found there were some good things that came out of it, because a lot of my world after book one, I didn't have an idea of quite where I wanted to go. I just had like a base plan. And I really fleshed out my world and really fleshed out where I wanted to go, how the magic systems worked, everything. Like I was saying, how vampires worked, how werewolves worked, or whatever, and that was really helpful in that area. But when I actually tried to write the story itself, I just found I hated it. I hated life. I was like, I don't want to be a writer. I started writing blog posts instead, just because I was having more fun writing those. And I'm just like, so I realized that I'm not a plotter. It's just really hard for me, because for me as a pantser, you're playing off of each individual scene, and the characters kind of become alive to you that way. And each scene it builds. And so you have a base. It's not like I don't have a base idea where I'm going, but having it to try to, and I want to say, even though I've written scripts, but in a scriptic way, try to script out the entire plot was difficult for me. I couldn't do it. It was just really hard. So I went and decided, because I found that sometimes as a pantser, I'm sure Walt will agree with this, you're prone to writer's block. Sometimes things that shouldn't take you forever to write. You might work on the same chapter for like 2 weeks, it seems sometimes to me, because you're like, and for me, I can't jump ahead. Like, I can't be like, well, I'm having a hard time here, I'm going to jump to a different scene. I can't do that. I have to write it linear. That's just the way I write. So I started doing, which I found has helped out greatly recently and helped my productivity, is I started plotting like 4 chapters in advance. So this way I'm plotting some, but not trying to come up with the entire story.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
And it's
helped. I have the opposite problem. I can't stop the ideas.
Okay.
So like, I never have writer's block.
Okay.
I don't know why. I just like I got to a scene in something I'm writing right now, and I'm just like, well, how am I going to progress this? Because I have like 2 storylines that are aiming at each other and about to meet, and I'm like, where did I want it to go from here? And the one of the characters I'm writing requires some research. And I can't really say too much because it'll give it away, but I have to, there's some media I have to consume in order to do this research. And usually I watch, listen, or do whatever it is to do that. And then I'm like, I have this like either battle or conflict in my head. And now I have like a point here. And as the 2 points come, I just have to reach that. So now I just have to bridge that gap. But I don't get the writer's block. I have the opposite, where I can't stop the ideas. And recently my wife has put on as her text message notification, somebody shouting out the word squirrel. Right. And every time she gets a message, wherever I am in the house, I'm like, you stop judging me, so like, so that way I keep my brain focused on what I'm supposed to be writing, as opposed to, that's a great idea, I'm gonna mash the shit out of this. So how about you, Ryan?
I think I'm more of a plotter. So the only book I've ever finished, I wrote with the headlights method, which is kind of what Jay was describing, where I would write scene 1, and then that's where my car is. And then I'm driving at night, and I can see the next scene very clearly and a little bit of the next scenes. Yep. I would kind of outline those a little bit, and then drive the car forward, write those. It turned into something where I would write a scene, and then the next day I would outline maybe 5 scenes, and the next day blitz through those, and then outline the next day's writing. And I was kind of doing that. That's the only thing I ever finished, and I should probably be doing that right now, but I'm trying. I tried to write Into the Dark. I got 2 chapters in, and I was like, it was really bothering me. I was feeling like struggle, like I need to know, I have to have a direction. I want to know where I'm going, and I feel like I messed up, and that bothers me when I pants, because I don't want this mess of a work that I feel like, oh, I got to go back and I got to do all these changes. So what I'm playing with, and it's probably wrong for me to do so, is I'm writing a screenplay, like, because I've done this before and it worked out really well for me. I'm writing a screenplay of the whole book, so I will have all of the action, all of the dialogue, very specific, already like kind of messed with, and then I'll convert it to prose.
That's That would
Which
work.
is kind of like if you watch an episode of Daredevil with the visually impaired setting on, and you have a narrator telling you the things that you have to see. That's kind of like writing a novel. It's kind of like converting a novel to or a screenplay to a novel. So I'm playing with that, and
I like that.
I don't know. I'm in a really bad time right now. We're trying to figure out my way through this.
It's kind of like what we do as a pantser for your second draft, really. Is once you're done with the first draft, now you realize you got to go back and kind of make this work. And if you can make it
I will
work in the
not do
first
it for
time,
years.
yeah,
I
if
will
you
put
can
it
make
off
it
forever.
work. Yeah, I don't like rewriting. I was telling somebody on one of the writing group I followed was asking the same thing. I said that after my second rewrite, I'm done. I'm like, it's going to the editor and they can tell me what to change because I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I can't write this book anymore. I've gone as far as I'm going to go. But as a script writer, I kind of like that idea, though. I would think it's a lot of work, though, I guess, for me.
You know, I did it years ago. I did it on a serial that I was writing. And actually, I think Walt might have read that serial. I think he was in my Patreon there. And we were doing it, and it took me an hour to write 3 scenes worth of screenplay.
Okay.
And then I had 3 scenes. Like I wrote the prose of that. It was so much confidence. And I never rewrote that. I just sent it to the editor. So I had basically 2 drafts where I outlined, because the script is really just an outline of a movie or a comic book. So I wrote the script, and then I wrote the prose, and that was it. Line edits and done. Okay. And editing the script was so much less work than going through hundreds of thousands of words or tens of thousands of words of prose. It just is so annoying. And then if you want to change something, it could change so many more words. A screenplay, it's like, oh, I don't like the establishing shot. Let me change 2 sentences.
Sure.
Not 2 pages of description.
Well, one of the things that, and I've mentioned this before, and I really thank Ellen Campbell for this from Keystroke Medium. She's like, find an app on your phone or something like this, and make your phone or whatever device read the story to you. So that way you will catch a lot of what you're trying to go for in your ear holes versus just trying to consume it through your eyeballs. And I'm just like, so I'll grab my manuscript when it's done, put it away for a couple of weeks, yank it out a couple of weeks later, and when I'm walking the dogs, I'll be listening to it, and I'll have my notebook in my back pocket, and I got a Pocket pen, which is one of those pens where it folds in on itself. And the only downside is when I need to like write notes or make a change or something like that, I'm out with the dog, so I have, a couple of leashes in my hand, and I'm like, all right, guys, just one minute, hold on, right? So, but yeah, other than that, I mean, I really pick up a lot in audio, and I've been able to catch and fix a lot of things, especially like story beats. Like, hey, I remember when I said this later on, I need to write it myself a note, so when I get here, I fix this when I get to it. Right. So, it's little things like that. It really pops when you're listening to it.
I think.
So did that help you with the show not tell? Because so far reading, you are very good at that.
So yes, that and certain other things. Having the benefit of people like Ellen and Lauren Moore, Kayleen Williams. As far as like, talking to these people who are very good at editing other people's works, they have a tendency to say the same. They're like almost like dog trainers, right? When you're training a dog to do a certain action, it's the same thing said in the same way with the same hand motion all the time. This ingrains the particular habit you're trying to teach the dog, and you get a reward for the dog, and it eventually the dog will learn the action, so it no longer requires a reward. It's the same kind of thing. They've been saying the same thing over and over again so much. It's like, don't tell me what's going on, show me what's going on. If you have to have exposition, put it in the middle of something happening. They could even be walking in and out and making a sandwich, right? Make that the most interesting goddamn sandwich you've ever seen. Right. So that way you're not just sitting there with 2 guys in a room having a meeting saying, well, back in the day before the floods, where it's not just like 2 people just back and forth like you're taking a class, because nobody wants to read that, but if you got somebody going Keanu Reeves hanging on the outboards of an SUV firing a machine gun, and you're like, yeah, I know we only have 5 minutes, but if this happens, and they're just going back and forth while the action is going on.
Yeah.
Or I think one of the really great scene in kind of like recent media, there's a very underrated TV show that did not get a second season. I was heartbroken. It's called The Brave. It's about Tier 1 squadron. So best term you'd probably know would be Delta Force. But it's both sides of the equation. You see their handlers and you see the operators, right? So when the handlers are like trying to give exposition as to what's going on with the operators, they're not just like, okay, well, and then typing on a keyboard, and then we have to do this and typing more on a keyboard because it's not really interesting.
Right.
You have somebody, there's a scene in one of the episodes where somebody is walking through the federal building and going through checkpoints. Right. And they're talking about the security that the operators are dealing with while going through their own checkpoints and talking out these story beats. And I was just like, that is so well done. I mean, it was just really fantastic to see. You're not just dumping info on the reader because, if you look at this from an RPG standpoint, what's the purpose of role-playing game art in a product? It's because you could have the best product out there, greatest writing, amazing editing, layout is killer. But if you're nothing but an entire block of text on every page, you are going to lose an RPG audience. And like adventure, urban fantasy, mysticism, fantasy, science fiction, we all need candy periodically to keep our attention. So
are you saying that
right when you
don't
said
like
candy,
giving your players big long handouts of backstory about your adventures?
Yeah, don't do that. No, don't do that.
Well, I mean, you can do that, but like half of them aren't going to read it anyway. So
I know.
And one of my favorite things to do when I was when I was GMing hardcore to do a lot of playtesting is I would get the playtester who'd be like, so yes, I want to tell you about my my fantasy princess who is also a princess of power, and here is her backstory, and it was 15 pages, and I'm like, I am so killing this character right away.
Right.
I am going to find a way to drop a rock on her head, just for the sake of doing it, because you didn't play any of this out in the story. You want me to read it versus let us all discover it and all enjoy it. You want to be a novelist? Go be a novelist, right? Yeah. You want at a game table to have these things happen naturally so that you're discovering them and it's as much fun. Then that's what we want at the game table. It's really not so much different when you're writing. When you're writing, so
what I was talking about with the show not tell is like your descriptions of characters. I don't feel like a lot of books you read, they'll be like, yeah, Michael, blonde hair, and all this kind of just a biography. You don't do that. Like you go into.
I really like
happening, and you're seeing what's happening, and that's describing that character as it happens to their body.
Yeah, I really like that method because, like, for example, in the first Hunter's Moon, there's a character named Ty, right? And Ty, unlike the rest of the crew, is one of the 3 aliens in the entire crew, right? He's a Vosi, 7.5, 8 foot tall, very muscular, red, and they act like space Italians. Right, or like space Romans, right, from back in the Roman Legion era, right? So they're very insanely tall, and they're despised by most of the galaxy because at one point they had conquered everybody, and then eventually their empire fell, and now they only own this real small piece. But this one guy is part of the thing, and his thing every time he's fighting, or every time you meet him on the screen, he's always making jokes. Because that's how he relates to human beings. They're gallows humor, uncomfortable jokes, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't care. He's always making jokes. And at one point, there's about to be some serious flack going on. And he raises his hand because he's injured. And he's like, well, if you guys are going to get into this, can I just go? Because I'm hurt. I need to see the doc, And it's stuff like that. Or you get Tiberian Haleus, who's one of the big marshals in the setting, and he's very regal, but you can just tell all the time he's just tired, You know, I've seen too much of this. I'm tired.
Yeah.
You know, so it's things like that. Play those things out in your in when you're writing, so that you don't have to describe him. I mean, the only thing you know about Tiberian when you meet him is he's got a scar on his cheek. That's it. He's got a scar on his cheek. He's wearing a cloak over his armor. That's all he's described. You don't know how tall he is, what color he is. That when I pictured Tiberian, you know, everybody was telling me originally they were picturing Liam Neeson, and I was picturing Idris Elba. You know, and so it's never mentioned. So that way, the reader's like, dude, I was so picturing Denzel in this role, and I was just like, everybody's got their own feel of it, and that's and you know, that's some of the lessons that some of the great writers I've been talking to, you just put in there, because they're, you know, you want that reader to not only know feel the story you were going for, but take some ownership over it, you know, so that they have a sense of, well, my Hylaeus is Idris Elba, and yours can be Liam Neeson, but that's just wrong. But it's okay, it's yours, you know, and it's fine. But I mean, you know, as long as they're having fun and they're reading it, and you know, and that show don't tell aspect, like the mongrel doesn't have a lot of lines in his own book, and the reason for that is he's kinetic. He's not supposed to be the guy that gives long expositions. Right. He's the guy that forces everything to keep moving forward. He's the catalyst for everything. Everybody else is forced to react to him because he's constantly moving. Because when you meet him, that's what you find out his origin was. And it's little pieces like that just filtered through the book, so that you're not you know, he's 6.2 feet tall, 184 pounds, and his skin is slightly, you know, no.
I learned from when Lauren was, because Lauren's my editor.
Lauren Moore from Keystroke Medium. Yep.
Yeah. And she really went through that. When you're describing a character, make it in an action. Don't have it be just, oh, here's the character. Unless it's like a side character that doesn't matter. Like you walk up on a guy, but then why are you describing the guy anyway? Like you should be like, you know, tall Italian dude. You don't need to explain his haircut and his, you know, unless he's important. But if they're important and you're detailing who they are, like I have a scene in the first book when I first introduced Dana. She's waking up out of bed and Jared's knocking on her door, and she smacks her head in trying to get dressed because she's, you know, has a thing for him, and all flustered. But I introduce her, instead of just saying blonde hair, you know, brown hair and Italian and whatever, you know, each, you know, like she smacked her head in her brown hair, whatever, you know, and describing what she looked like, and get a feeling for who she is too by how she's interacting with the scene. And one thing I feel like this is something that I've been working on and thinking a lot about too with book two. You start introducing aspects of characters, and it's easy for us as writers to just say, particularly if you've written scripts. For me, like you're just kind of saying, all right, well, this is what they do, or I have one scene in I think chapter 5 of the current book where I'm kind of describing what the person's personality is a little bit. Now he's self-reflecting, so it's okay, but I've been thinking about, is there a better way for me to say that so it's unfolding more naturally? Because you want people to, it's kind of like when you meet a new person, you don't just walk up and be like, hey, I'm Jay and I do this and this is my personality and these are all my weaknesses. You know what I'm saying? You don't do that. I don't. I mean, not since I was like 12, but you know, so you want people to naturally unfold before you, so you learn about them as you go. They don't tell you their darkest secret right off the bat. So it's kind of like when you're introducing characters and when you're telling the story, finding ways to do that in the middle of action, but also so that you're not just kind of telling them this is who I am. You're letting them find out this is who they are. And it's easier for me when I'm dealing with someone like the Musketeer, who's already mysterious and I'm not telling you anything at all. When people are like, who is he and what is he? And you don't know, you know, I'm just hinting. And so in this book, the beginning of the first book, I give a little bit more of a drop, like in a conversation between him and Jared, when Jared's trying to figure out who he is. And it's like just little things, but I'm not going to tell you. You know what I'm saying? You're figuring that out. And I think that's one of the things I learned a lot from writing the first book. Like, you don't want to just throw it out there. Oh, this is who they are. This is what they look like. kind of unfold it, because you want to find out as a reader. You want to know. You don't want it all just right there for you right off the bat. Like, I already know who he is and where he's going. You know.
Right.
Cool, cool. Hey, I got something just shifting. Oh, hey, Walt has a large dog. Stuff, right?
Help.
That's not the one that jumps, is it?
No, he's right next. They're battling in the next room.
Gotcha.
Yeah, fun times. Oh, what's this?
James,
We should talk about this because this was huge the other day, and Substack even dropped a big email about it.
Yeah, so this is a guy writing Batman who says, you know what, I'm done writing Batman. I'm going to take my artist friend and we're going to create content on Substack and we're going to own it. And thanks, Warner Brothers, we're going to do my own thing now. And you hear, and we've had a lot of comics writers on the podcast over the last 10 years. And a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, I want to do more, self-owned stuff. And some people do, some people don't. But this is the first time I've seen someone who's, you're writing Batman. It's like you're driving Kit on Knight Rider. You're the guy. And as far as being a writer in the comic book space, being the writer on a monthly Batman book is pretty goddamn big. And he's been there. And he's like, you know what? It's okay, but I want to write my own stuff now. And I want to own what I create. I don't just want to service someone else's IP like other writers have been doing for the last 80 years. And I thought this is a pretty big deal. And it reminds me of what's, we talk about Substack here. I think, Ryan, you had a Substack for a while, if I'm not mistaken. Walt, you got one too, I think.
Yep.
That you guys are using yours more as newsletters just to keep your fan base engaged?
The benefit of Substack is that when they came out, their whole shtick was, we want writers to own their own stuff. And having a paid platform, it's almost like having a paid pre-order. So like if you're going to do an issue or something like that, having something like this where you have paid subscribers, so you have your free stuff to let everybody know what's going on, and then the actual pages are behind the paywall. It's just like, it's like if you were pre-selling the issues right away. And I think the interesting thing about this is it also gives you the ability to kind of cut out the middleman. I love Image Comics. I love the what they did for comics back in the late 90s and revitalizing the comic scene, as saying, like, we're just pushing you forward, but you own whatever it is you produce. And I think this is just the next step to it, to where they're not paying into a distribution model. They are the distribution model, and it's kind of a neat idea.
Interesting.
It's just hard because this guy's getting out of no trouble. He's got a huge audience. When you don't have an audience and you don't have the storefront of Amazon or something like that, it's harder than getting followers on Twitter that actually interact, because the follow is bullshit. That's not a thing.
Right.
I keep seeing these people in the RPG space on Twitter who are trying desperately to create more engagements. They're like, hey, quick, tell me what your favorite class is.
Yeah.
I'm like, really, dude?
Actually, master, if you want to, just for people watching, if you want a master class on how to get people to engage with you, D&D Shorts on YouTube. This dude is brilliant. He came out of nowhere and he's got so many followers and views. And it's just genius. The way he does his little shorts, the way he does his little quests, his what is it called? Surveys and stuff. He knows how to get people to interact. He's genius.
Oh, yeah. That's just literally D&D.
D&D Shorts. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And
cool.
he's fun. He's so fun to watch. He's a great guy. He's a great time. I don't know if he's a great guy. I've never talked to him, but he's got some great stuff.
It's fun to watch.
Son of a bitch owes me $2.
I would definitely, fund a Kickstarter if he was doing something. But he's a lot of fun. But if you want to learn how to get engagement.
Yeah, and short videos is where it's at. And here we are doing a 45-minute video about how to write. But yeah, it's what gets your views on YouTube. Tiny videos, 5 minutes or less.
I found that out the hard way.
Yeah, I've been finding out for 10 years now. I'm still finding. One day I will learn. But I just found something. You guys know Chip Zdarsky, Sex Criminals?
Oh, yeah. He's going over too.
Yeah, he was writing. Well, Kaptara is a comic book he did a couple years ago, and I call it kind of his big comical gay He-Man. although it's kind of ignoring the fact that He-Man is kind of comical and gay too. But Capterra is deliberately, hey, we're gay and we're funny and we're parodying He-Man. And they made a big splash when it came out a few years ago, or as big a splash as indie comics make, and then just boom, gone.
Yeah.
Now he's like, hey, I'm going to start it up again here on Substack.
Yep.
So yeah, there's the picture. As you can see, it's you can get the vibe. But yeah, it's wow. I'm wishing I had more content to push on Substack or Vela right now. I do not get Vela. I mean, I love the idea of short pieces of serialized content. But I had someone on. Oh God, Dan Taylor, who's doing Zebulon Prime. Dan Taylor, you might know from Geek Punk Press and RPGs a few years ago, and he's doing this buddy comedy time travel thing, Zebulon Prime. And I'm like, how do you get paid? It's like, well, it's a little complicated. It's more for building up an audience and then taking that audience with you somewhere, which seems awfully optimistic. Because Amazon is just this big, deep, wide ocean of creators. All, hey, pay attention to me. So, yeah, it looks like it's a lot of fun, and maybe that's the attitude you have to have about it. So. Anyway, I've been talking for like 5 minutes now. I feel like I killed the conversation. Sorry about that, guys.
No, the thing about Vela is they're trying to create that read on the way to work while you're riding the bus, read in the doctor's office, short little snippets so that you're not feeling like, oh, I got to bring out my book because I really got to finish this novel I'm reading, Eric Hansen, Nick Cole, guys like that are doing really cool things. Dean Floyd are really doing really cool things on Kindle Vella right now. I just read another couple chapters of Eric Hansen's Voyage of the Sorceress. And it's not Voyage of the Sorceress, something of the Sorceress. My bad. But like,
are you saying sorceress or sorceress?
Sorceress. Sorry.
Right, cool, thank you. Right.
Tales from the Sorceress. Excuse me.
Okay.
From Eric. I read that a couple more chapters last night. Really, really cool, like Viking longship raiding type story. Very, very well done. Nick Cole's fantasy epic that he's doing on Kindle Vella. It's got an amazing Errol Otis cover. So if you looked at D&D covers from way back in the way back, and they had that cool watercolor, very trippy vibe, that's the cover he's got, and it's just. No.
No, that's not what I meant.
Yeah, no, it's not that.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's that kind of vibe. So Into the Unknown is Nick Cole's. The Dean Floyd has his Martian Bounty Hunter series, and the great part about it is you can read it 20-30 minutes, until the next chapter drops or next episode.
Since you do a lot with Keystroke Medium, what are people saying about income from Vela?
Sporadic, unless you have an audience.
Right.
So like guys
like book sales.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Guys like Nick who
we've lost Walt.
No, it's about to get weird in here. It's funny when the Belgian Malinois is competing with the cat. But the you can hear him in the background. He's very grumpy right now. But like guys like Nick Cole who have a kind of like a built-in audience because of his particular writing style, the fact that he's part of the team that produces Galaxy's Edge. Right. You have a oh my god, I'm being assaulted by dogs. He's seeing some uptick with it. So, but guys who might not be as well known, they're having to discover that even with something like Kindle Vella, as an indie writer, if you're really considered indie, you need to promote your own stuff.
Yeah.
You need to throw some ad money in there, both on Amazon and on things like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever people are hanging out.
And it might make more sense then to have just finish the book, because then you're not I mean, you have a
Yeah.
book.
Splitting your time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a promotion's a whole other. As I mean, I was involved in Kickstarter that wasn't doing as well as we wanted to. We were down to 2 weeks, and I was like, well, I didn't want to do Kickstarter ads, but we're going to do Kickstarter ads. It was for a nonfiction anthology, and holy shit, that pushed us over the edge, and I wouldn't have thought it would. But
Right.
just targeting. All right, we want U.S. and UK people who are fans of this kind of a genre, people who read this kind of books, and it wasn't a big spend. I mean, I dropped like $40 or $50, and we made like 300. In
Nice.
pledges. So yeah, that's not a great return if you were on Madison Avenue, but for someone just trying to get over the line in a Kickstarter, it was just what we needed.
But in
So-
general, you want to consider marketing costs being 20% of your business spend. So in that regard, that was better. It was only about 10%.
Yeah, we got lucky. It worked out. So yeah, but I when I think about how I promote my creative stuff, do I do Facebook ads? And then I think about Twitter ads, and I'm like, I hate Twitter ads. Does anyone actually like Twitter ads?
No.
Who clicks on those? Yeah.
Does anybody like use Twitter? I don't know. Like, it seems to me that everyone's like follow for follow with people just to get the numbers up, and then just cruise through to find a comment that you could be like, oh, if I comment on this, maybe someone will comment back or follow me. Like, it just looks like it's 100% vanity to me.
I think of it as a big high school cafeteria at a really lousy high school. That's there's a lot of little cliques, and you want to engage with them and get some response, but mainly it's people who are getting pissed off and yelling at each other. So, but that's just me. I'm cynical. Jay, Walt, have you guys had different experiences?
I get a lot of like interactions as far as when I'm posting like D&D stuff for the old school D&D web channel that we do, and that's I mean, that's a thing. It's kind of interesting to have that interaction, because my normal interaction with Twitter has just not really been that great. But the that, because D&D is in the public eye right now, it has a tendency to cause interaction. As far as like the rest of it goes, periodically, I mean, if I tag things the right way, I might get some interaction, but for the most part, most of the interaction I get with people, surprisingly, is through Facebook Messenger. Having a messenger attachment to your advertisement on Facebook, people will be like, I had a guy just cold message me, hey dude, I'd really love a signed copy of this book. And it's like, okay, really? Have you seen my signature? You might reconsider. But like,
just forge it and say, yeah, I did it.
I'm like, look, just pretend you're having a spasm, put the pen on the page. That's my signature. But I mean, it's one of those things where you're just like, wow, really? Oh, cool. And I had somebody else cold contact me, and it's like, hey, I read your short story in this book and I loved it. Where can I get the rest of your stuff? And I'm like, whoa. And
I didn't know you could include a messenger link with your ads. I should do that. So.
Yeah, and and it takes me a minute usually to respond to those, because they on the app on your phone, they don't really come up the same way. It's like a separate thing you have to click into. So I'm like, oh, there's a message waiting over here. Huh. So you click into it, and sure enough, there's somebody asking for my signature, and which it happened enough times where it's like, hey, I would like a signed copy. I'm like, you like me? Oh my God, you like me, right? So I actually produced signature block stickers so that I can send them out to people and be like, hey, look, if you've already bought the book but you want a signed copy and you don't want to have to spend the money again, I know times are tough right now and everybody's kind of struggling. If I send you a sticker, a really nicely done sticker with my signature on it, is that cool? And people have been really receptive. They just slap on the book and that's it.
Well, that's cool. It wasn't even a puffy sticker or scratch and sniff. It was just a sticker with your name.
No, well, they're a little better than that. They're I can't reach them. Maybe I can reach them. Up. So they're I got a couple of different types, but they're like so like in the second book, there's this group that use this symbol called the owl-eyed skull. Right, so they get they can get that. You can get the Hazard Studio sticker if you want, or it's the actual let me see if I can get this. It's the actual picture of the inside of the book done as a sticker, and then I sign them and then I send them out.
Nice.
Damn. Walt is the merch king. All right.
So we got T-shirts planned for that skull logo. We got T-shirts and stuff like that planned for.
Who made the logo?
I did.
Oh, nice. That's good work.
So the Hunter's Moon stuff was created by Steve Bollier from Athon Books. So we had the original Hunter's Moon that if you go to our RPG section for Hazard Studio on drive-thru, you can see what the role-playing game version of that looks like. It's very stylistic and a little bit different, but we might be changing over so that everything has the same look. It's just So like little things like that. Surprising. I was very surprised that like Instagram and Facebook Messenger, people are just like direct talking to you like, hey, I really enjoyed the book. Can you tell me more about the next book, or can I get a copy to preview? Maybe I'll write a review. And it's like, oh, that's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's funny because you just start. I mean, I'm like literally small. Yeah. Hey, yeah. Get the Banff T-shirt. Jacob is modeling. I'm small potatoes. I'm just starting out really. And people were like, dude, I was so afraid to reach out to you. It's like, what, me? Come on, bro.
What is this site?
This is Banff merch because we're a big deal. We're a high quality podcast, Ryan. If you didn't know that,
only the
we
best.
are. And we have pint glasses, we have stickers, we have T-shirts, and there's a picture somewhere. Yeah, Banff-podcast. Teespring, Banff-podcast.creator- God, that's an ugly URL. Fuck. Anyway, I'll throw it in the private chat and in the comments. But you can when con season returns in 2022, you can show people that you are a proud supporter of the Banff podcast.
So you guys can come see me in Las Vegas, the Level Up convention. I've got an inn over there, and we'll probably get a pretty cheap booth.
Oh,
nice.
What is a
we could all share
convention? That would be cool.
It's a Level Up convention is 100%. It's like everything creator. So I used to run the security for them, and it was everyone from anime people to I got to have lots of conversations with the creator of Zen, the Intergalactic Ninja.
No kidding.
No, dude, he's so awesome. Because I was like, dude, I grew up on this. He signed me.
I love that book back in like the 90s and stuff.
Yeah, he signed one and gave it to me, and it was great. But then they also have a lot of video gaming, a lot of card games, just everything geek culture. It's a Level Up, LVL up.
Okay, we should.
It's pretty big now.
Once we're out of the plague, I would be up for that. But here's freaking co-host Jacob Blackman modeling that T-shirt, and so it's Jacob's a 3X, I think. So it fits him. So
it looks good.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry, that was my cheesy merchandise sellout.
We need to get a video of Jacob running the catwalk.
Why?
Well, because why not? I mean, if he's going to model's going to model.
Pin in that one. We'll come back to it. Jay, it was great having you on today, sir. I know we tend to talk a lot. Do you have any closing thoughts, or
can we throw up a link for his book again?
Final thoughts as we wrap things up.
You're not coming out on sound.
What a
just lost
creative
audio.
way
You guys
to
There we
say
go.
it.
Sorry, I muted myself.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was. Yeah, you are. Sorry, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I hit myself and muted.
Okay.
If I hit this too hard, it mutes. Buy my book.
Yeah.
We were just talking. Walt and I were just talking about that. As a matter of fact, the other day, this whole advertising thing is all new to me. I mean, I'm brand new at this. I'm not gaining any real traction. So.
You guys can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a little delay.
Walt, I can't hear anything. Can you finish up the show? Because I got nothing right now.
I got you. So yeah, keep going, Jay. Keep going.
So we were just talking about that, how advertising is important.
Oh wait, someone talk.
I'm kind of in.
We're still talking.
I'm kind of I'm kind of in a different boat. I mean, I have one book out. So how much do you realizing how much do you invest in advertising when you've only got one book out? So I think one of the biggest things for me is just keep writing until I've got a couple more books out. I did hire somebody recently, convinced me to hire them, another author, to do some PR work for me. We'll see how that goes. I'm just starting with that. As a matter of fact, I have a meeting with him after this. So we'll see how that goes, but really just keep writing, I guess, is what I've been hearing. Walt's got 3, I got 1. So once I got 3, then maybe I'll spend a little bit more money. But I do realize that if you don't spend anything, if you don't advertise, nobody's going to find you. And that's kind of.
I'm curious about that, Walt. You probably know if authors got together when they only have 1 book or 2 books and they don't have that big thing, but they came together to cross promote each other and help each other promote.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah,
I mean,
especially if you had similar genres.
yeah. I mean, why not? Absolutely. Just taking a post from an author that says, "Hey, this is my book," and blah blah blah, and just reposting that with not just reposting it, but reposting it with a little bit more of yourself, is kind of really good advertising, because people are like, he not only just hit the share button, but he stopped long enough to make a comment about it. Maybe I'll check this out. It's little things like that build community engagement. Get that author page going, or get that group page going. Put together something that allows people to come in and talk. If you got a Discord, get in on something like the what do you call it? Urban Fantasy Discord. Get in there and just engage with people, and just remember, right? So one of the big things to remember is, and there's a couple of different guys who will kind of promote this. Don't promote your stuff on author pages, right? Don't promote your stuff on like groups like 20 books to 50K, right. Keystroke Medium, stuff like that. Those are for like authors learning the craft, right? It's all authors. Authors don't want to buy your book. They're too busy writing their own books. You want to find readers and find places where readers are hanging out, and don't just run in there and be like, "Oh my God, it's readers! I have a book." Right? Because guess what? They're going to throw 2 middle fingers at you and start using a whole bunch of words that you're going to have to learn. If you like Walt's book, check out Jay's book. Applies that if you like Jay's book, check out Walt's book.
Yes.
Oh my God,
he's actually in my but I mean, thanked him in my book. So.
At the other side of it, right? Don't just roll in there and just throw out, "Hey, this is all about my stuff," Roll in there and talk about the thing that you like. Like me, I love space opera and like bounty hunters and all that stuff from like, loving Star Wars, Mandalorian, blah, blah, blah. Right. But a lot of times, a lot of that stuff that's in mainstream media just really it misses the mark for me a little bit. So when you got, when you go, God, really, singing voice, when you go someplace like Discord or a discussion group on Facebook, and you talk about the stuff that you really like, eventually somebody will be like, "Oh my God, you sound like you write this stuff," or, "Oh, you really know a lot about this." And it's like, well, I write. Don't just go in there chasing the advertisement. Go engage with the thing that you like to do. If somebody finds out that you have a book, let that happen organically. Because the thing is, if you really love what you do, who cares about anything else? As long as you're really enjoying it, you're going to get so much more out of that than if you're just going in there and artificially hey, knock it off.
He didn't agree with you. He didn't agree with your point.
Woo! I almost lost
said,
the
"To hell
leg.
with that. Buy my book."
Right? But like, if you're going in there and just enjoying yourself, that's the big thing, because if you're just pushing books, eventually you're just the guy that comes in there to say, "Buy my book." Nobody's going to want that. I've noticed that. Yeah. If you're the guy that's just like, "Hey man, what are we talking about today?"
There was an old saying when I was doing stand-up 20 years ago. There were a lot of shows that were called bringer shows because sometimes, believe it or not, it's real challenging to say, hey, we're having comedy down at the local Bennigan's. You should bring your friends. People are like, fuck no.
Yeah.
I'm going to do karaoke, shoot pool, watch America's Funniest Home Videos. I'm not going to go watch some assholes in front of a microphone try to be funny. So bringer shows try to solve this problem by, hey, you go out and get your friends, you get your friends, you get your friends, bring them all to the show. And you tend to have comedians who, after 3 or 4 years of trying to work the local circuit, have no friends or family who will talk to them or go places with them in public anymore. You've leveraged every social interaction you have to try to promote your thing, and everyone's pissed off at you. And it's so.
If you do the best you can at learning the craft and really enjoy what you're writing, right? Even if you're writing to market, which is, you know what the market is looking for, so you're going to try and write that thing. But if you find yourself in the middle of a story that you're genuinely enjoying, it's something that you want to read. And I saw a great meme today, like if you're an author, write the kind of stuff you're going to want to read, because you're going to have to read it 27 times. But find that piece of thing that you want to read, and write that, because I mean, if you're having fun, most likely, and you got your core skills down, the reader's going to have fun. And if the reader's having fun, they're going to buy more of your stuff, but at the end of the day, this shouldn't, Tolkien didn't write Lord of the Rings for book sales. He wrote it as an exercise to see if he could create a language.
I thought he was trying to get girls. Was he not trying to do that?
No.
Sorry, that was a low-hanging fruit joke. I should have been smarter than that, but forgive me. Anyway, we've been talking for over an hour. We should wrap things up. Let me play the official audiovisual BAM outro. It just grows on you, right? It gets
absolutely.
All right. Ryan, Jay, well, thank you very much. Pleasure talking to you, gentlemen. Jay, I hope you'll join us next week, or we do this every week or two, depending on schedules and whatnot.
Okay. So, let me know what time, and I'll see what I can do.
And I apologize for the dog wrestling.
It's cool, man. You can't hear it, but upstairs I have a Great Dane wrestling with a corgi, pretty much nonstop.
You need to film that right away.
The wife
TikTok,
doesn't want to go YouTube with it. Well, it's weird because the Great Dane you would think would be just like winning that fight left and right, but
that corgi is hitting the couch and jumping off and hitting him with the top rope. It's just
see. I know you're trying to be funny,
Andre
but
the Giant versus Jimmy Superfly Snuka.
Yeah, she does. She jump up and grab those jowls and just hang on. It's awful, but funny at the same time.
Oh, you gotta put this on.
My little dog wins all the time too, just same way.
Yeah, just she doesn't stop, just pure aggression. All right, and on that happy note, we're wrapping things up. See you next time on Writers Thursday, people.
Thanks again.
Cheers.
Bye.
Yeah, he hit the wrong button. So we're still here.
We're still here.
What are we talking about?
I don't know. What are we talking about?
Instead, show continues. This is live. This is live entertainment, folks. This is what happens. All right. Thanks for watching the BAMF podcast. Now I will end the broadcast.